So imagine beating the final boss in a video game only to trip down the stairs on your way to the exit. That's more or less how I feel right now. In my absence these past few months, I was extremely happy to have won my battle against esophageal cancer, only to get rear-ended by Atlanta traffic, because if there's anything that's guaranteed to suck all of your happiness and joy from life, it's Atlanta drivers. In all seriousness, I actually still feel great. My spirits are still high and my shoulder is healed enough to not be in constant pain. I'm actually able to type again, which is why I'm able to edit, record, and make this video finally. I'm still recovering from surgery I had a month or so ago, so basically I fractured my humeral head in specific. It's the ball joint in your shoulder and it's extremely hard to heal and hold in place. It's going to take 3 to 6 months to even a year to fully recover its full range of motion and strength. Again, my spirits are high, things are getting better. Don't interpret this as me complaining. I just wanted to talk about it, alright? Like, I don't really wear my heart on my sleeve, which is why this video may be coming completely out of left field, but like, I'm just generally terrible at expressing my positive emotions, which is why I usually just bury them instead. But I really feel like I need to share my battle with cancer because it's something that I've been struggling with for the entirety of my YouTube channel's existence, as well as a decent portion of my life. I'm not here to guilt trip anyone or beg for money. There's no Patreon, Twitch donations, or GoFundMes. I've already won my battle. I don't need the money. Please save it for someone who still does need it. I paid for all my own treatment myself, and I struggled with it all myself. Looking back, I do wish I was more open about what I was going through. I kind of feel a little bad still even now because I feel like I'm pouring a massive waterfall over people's heads because this is a lot of emotional weight, but I do want to remind people watching that the journey is complete and it has a happy ending. Like, again, read the title of this video. I just want to talk about it and I need people to listen, so lend an ear if you can. Okay, so esophageal cancer, what is it? Well, your throat, also called your esophagus, is the tube that leads to your mouth that allows you to eat, breathe, talk, sing, and you get the point. Esophageal cancer is very rare and it's very slow progressing as well. It doesn't kill that fast, and that's also why esophageal cancer is very hard to treat because it doesn't receive the funding that a lot of other cancers do. It's extraordinarily rare for younger people to ever develop esophageal cancer, but it can still happen, and studies are even showing that it is beginning to increase in people in their 20s or 30s because of an increase in processed foods consumption. Personally, I've never smoked or vaped in my life. I've never been around people that have done either of those activities either. So the only thing I can really point a finger at is possibly an overconsumption of processed food or just unlucky genetics. I can't say for certain. Regardless of what caused me to get it, it didn't change reality that I would get afflicted with it. At a very early age in adolescence, I was diagnosed with pre-cancer for the esophagus, which is known as Barrett's esophagus, and was confirmed by tissue biopsies. The really sad part is my stupid Asian tiger parents were too foolish to take this diagnosis seriously enough to enact proper medical actions to prevent it from forming into full-blown cancer. It's ironic when you think about it because Asian parents don't shut the up about how hard you should study because you be doctor, you study hard. It's sad that they don't actually take the words of doctors seriously because it's no secret they only tell their kids to be doctors because doctors make a lot of money, not because they actually value the work that doctors do. Also, if I sounded a bit venomous here, I'm not going to apologize for it. I'm going to dial myself back a bit because I don't want to get too off topic, but I want to draw some correlation between abusive parenting and my cancer development. Had I had parents who actually took the proper steps and kept me on preventative care during my initial run-in with Barrett's esophagus during the pre-cancer phase, there's a high probability I would have never developed esophageal cancer. Some of the most expensive health risks can be solved with early attention. Looking back, one of the things that really pissed me off is how in denial both of my parents were. They would say, our genetics are too good for something like this to happen. I'm never gonna blame childhood me for getting cancer because that literally wasn't his responsibility. He couldn't earn money yet. He couldn't just run away from home, so I was kind of stuck with the cards I was dealt with. And before anyone misunderstands, I don't actually resent my parents anymore. I think their life was still hard and I understand that they struggled too, but I don't forgive them either. And I don't think anyone in the world can fault me for that, as they could have done way better actions and they could have made my life easier, and I don't think I'm entitled for desiring that because that's the whole point of being a parent, to make your child's life better than yours in spite of your struggles. Again, pre-cancer is way cheaper to treat than actual cancer, and the few dollars that they were so scared to spend back then, I had to spend several years of my life and hundreds of thousands to undo. People bitch about pay-to-win games. Imagine how it must feel to have a pay-to-live life. I know we all pay to live via living expenses, but no one asks for cancer. So to anyone watching who is a parent, please love and cherish your kids. They're fragile, you need to protect them. By the time I finally got myself checked when I became an adult, I was diagnosed with stage 1 esophageal cancer. I had biopsies taken from my mucosa lining that confirmed cancerous growths. The way I found out I had cancer was through an endoscopy. So an endoscopy is a surgery where they send a camera down your throat to check its condition. If the camera does find something unusual, in this case cancer, then further appointments will have more endoscopy procedures that will have something more than just a camera. They can send additional devices that can even install things. Like I have a tiny pill-sized robot that was in me for a period of time that was called the Bravo pH device that was used to monitor my stomach acid levels. Endoscopies can also be used for something called ablation, which is a process used to kill cancerous masses or other abnormal areas in your throat. I was very familiar with this personally, as this was one of the primary reasons for repeat visits, as you usually do ablation every 2 to 3 months. It's also very expensive. Endoscopy, even with my insurance, each visit was costing anywhere from 3, 5. Sometimes if your insurance was really kicking my ass, it could be even 9 or 15 grand. Cancer, generally speaking, costs usually anywhere from 50, 70, 90 grand a year. So it's not cheap. It's hard. It sucks. It's a huge financial burden, but I pushed myself to get through it because I don't like burdening others. And I was in a privileged position where I didn't need to do chemo since I was in a very early stage, right? Stage 1. And this cancer also progresses very slowly, so my doctor didn't feel the need to rush me and, more importantly, subject me to the potential risk of chemo. They made their absolute best to educate me about the availability of chemo if I did decide I wanted to do it, but they're also very transparent about its downsides. And something I do still want to mention that's a very under talked about point regarding cancer is how ridiculously tired you feel all the time. So it's a lot worse stage 2 onwards, especially if you're also undergoing chemo. But even at stage 1, your cardiovascular endurance tanks drastically. When I first started this channel in 2017 to 18, I used to upload every 1 to 2 days, and then that became every 3 to 4 days in 2019 to 2020, and then every 5 days from like 2020 to 2021. And then very recently, I am holding a weekly schedule, but this year I even had to resort to using shorts because even a weekly schedule just got hard because I really want to iterate this. I briefly touched about it at the start of the video, but like I still do everything on my own. I research everything for my videos. I record everything for my videos, and I do all of the editing for my videos. I don't have any editors or script writers. I'm a very old-fashioned YouTuber in that aspect, but to be fair, I also couldn't afford to hire anyone because of the cancer treatment and it's expensive, but also because it's just, in my opinion, I don't want to say it's the right way to run a YouTube channel because that sounds too rude. I don't think there's anything wrong if you want to hire people, but like I do it because it's nostalgic and because it's worked for me. And to be fair, like I'm still heavily inspired by 2012 to 2014 era of YouTube where YouTubers were just YouTubers, like honest to God YouTubers, not corpo-tubers, where they didn't have these big employee groups and big companies like BuzzFeed and so on and so forth. It was generally just some people pointing a camera at themselves and talking to the world. So that's why I still do that to this day. Aside from uploading slower, I also quit vlogging entirely prior to 2022. Going outside just got harder and harder. Having energy to go to car meets and car shows just became fewer and further between. So I just silently withdrew myself from the crowd, only telling a few really close friends what was actually going on with me. Looking back, I remember telling myself, wow, I guess this is it. I'm only gonna feel more tired and lonely with each passing year, and I kinda just accepted that. In the earlier part of my YouTube career, I did say something rather ominous at the end of my videos where I would say, I'll keep posting videos until either YouTube ends or until I do.
But I'd also like to thank you guys for listening, and I hope you guys keep listening for years to come, because I'll still be here talking, until the end of my days or until YouTube closes, whichever one comes first, I guess.
And I did mean that because I was terrified to dying to cancer and I had no way of wording that fear into a way where I thought others could understand me, so I ended up just being, I guess, vague. Because I don't know, it's like I just didn't want to burden people with my potential suffering. It was, I'll get into that later in this video, but like regardless, that doesn't take away from the fact that I enjoyed my entire time posting videos here. Every time I post something on YouTube, I cherish it. I know I rant more about JDM cars than some people would like, but as I mentioned in a previous video, there are 10,080 minutes in a week. You only see 15 minutes of me each week. Even if a YouTuber uploads daily, that's still only 70 to 80 minutes of them each week. We all play a character for camera, and sometimes that means exaggerating certain opinions for the sake of silliness. What we do off camera for the other 10,000 minutes is completely unseen by the internet. we're still humans and we have our own lives, and I hope everyone who has judged me harshly will consider differently. I'm not asking that they like me, and I'm not asking to be liked by everyone, but at the very least I just want people to know that I'm not 100% serious when I'm being silly, like when I rant about JDM cars. Like, that's just something I want to just tell people, because like, it's just for fun at the end of the day. I do YouTube for fun. It was never about hyper optimizing my algorithms, selling tons of merch, or shoving sponsors every video. I literally just upload videos for fun. Like, and this is something that you can literally fact check me on. You can go back through my channel. I have less sponsors on this channel than I do fingers on one of my hands. Because of how little I could use my voice, I found peace in knowing YouTube was one of the most effective ways I could be heard. Seriously, talking used to be such a chore, and I don't mean that in like an edgy way, like, oh, speaking to others is so bothersome. I wanted to talk, like, I seriously love talking, I enjoy it, I just literally couldn't. Talking literally hurts for me, and it's been that way for the entire past decade of my life. I have a daily quota of how much I can comfortably speak before I literally start coughing up blood, and if you've seen me at car meets in Atlanta, I have actually done this, so there's actually some people who can vouch for this, where I get so lost in just spending time with subscribers and talking out of enjoyment that I would start coughing up blood because I talk too much, and my voice gets noticeably more hoarse too. And I would always tell people to stop worrying about me back then, and now you guys know why I was doing that. It's kind of sad how like that's how a lot of people, that's the first way they're gonna find out why I did that. But yeah, that's also why like when I tried streaming, I couldn't really do it, because I was like, I would stream for like 2 to 3 hours, get completely winded, and not be able to talk for the next 2 days. It was awful. Like, it not only makes YouTube hard, this makes getting like even just holding down a normal job next to impossible, because any job that requires extended amounts of talking, like service jobs, I couldn't do. I know this is a weird detail to go off the rails over, but I generally think people take for granted just how beautiful a gift it is to talk. That's why I was so grateful to YouTube taking off. It was the perfect trade-off where I didn't need to talk much but could be heard by many. Instead of burning through my daily speaking allowance trying to find topics with strangers that they might potentially not even be interested in, YouTube let me just record whatever for a few minutes and let the internet, who is interested in the same topics, find me. That's my main driving force for making videos. While we're talking about all these things, I may as well throw this in. For all those who've been wondering about why I discontinued my second channel, Kartaku, I've really enjoyed making videos on it, by the way. Seriously, I did. But it got to a point where I had to choose between Bladed or Kartaku. I really just couldn't speak that much, and I felt I have an obligation to my audience here on Bladed more, so I just ended Kartaku, which is why that channel effectively died in early 2019. Really in late 2018, because I think the final video in 2019 is like a compilation of that channel. Truth be told, reflecting on it now that I've said all these things aloud, I should not have subjected myself to the emotional deficit that I've kind of created for myself. I should have shared my struggle earlier, and that's why I'm pushing myself to do this now, because I've had a lot of time to think about this being injured, and I couldn't even type because my shoulder was broken, right? So like for like 6 weeks, I couldn't really do anything because I really broke my shoulder in one of the worst places possible. Because some people after 3 or 4 weeks can start to do day-to-day things, but my doctor, like orthopedic, was assuring me where they're like, it's normal that you still can't do most of the things other patients can, it's because you really broke yours in a really bad spot. But since I've had all this time to reflect, it made me realize like how valuable time is, right? Like sitting around and doing nothing, it sucks. Like I actually hate it. I love being a workaholic. I love feeling like I'm working towards something. Truth be told though, the main reason I probably didn't reach out for help earlier was because I hated the idea of burdening more people than necessary. I hate more than anything when people feel sad for me. I don't know if it's like a childhood emotional defensive mechanism, but like, whatever. I'm smart enough now to know that this behavior is a consequence of my upbringing, since whenever I had any emotional, mental, or hell even physical struggle, my parents just rolled their eyes at me, or even berated me, or even hit me for being a weak boy who's gonna grow up into a pathetic man. This led me to grow up to become someone who incorrectly made the assumption that anyone else I tell my situation to was going to do the same as everyone else in my childhood did to me, where they're gonna laugh at me for showing emotions because emotions means weakness, and we should just lock them away in silence because that's what real men do. So that's what my solution was. Looking back at still boils my blood thinking about the lack of emotional support that I had growing up and how many others probably suffer in silence due to the same issue where they don't have the emotional support growing up. And that bad upbringing actually does mold your young adulthood and possibly even the rest of your life if you never move past that trauma. And it does create that misconception that others don't care about them, therefore they shouldn't try to get others to care about them. And that's the state of mind I existed in, honestly, up until I want to say like 6 months ago. Like when I mean I learned it recently, I really learned it pretty recently, because thankfully I did end up learning that people do value you. And one thing I tell myself to feel happier is I just tell myself I got a really unlucky spawn. Apologies for using like video game terminology a lot, but it's generally just the best way I can explain some things and try to make the mood more lighthearted. But when I first said aloud to myself that I just had a bad spawn, I kind of laughed, because there are many people who may also be in that situation. It's very well possible that you get stuck in a garbage 18-year tutorial that you're just stuck in, but it's not going to be indicative of the rest of your life, and you get to choose the rest of your life, but you do have to push through that suffering, right? Another thing I do to cheer myself up is basic math. For example, there are 8 billion people in this world. There's no way that all of them hate you. I grew up in a small town in Indiana with 4,000 or so people. Even if they all hated me, which I basically felt like they all did, I was just completely shut out for most of my life. I was a super troublesome kid, always got in fights. There's no way such a tiny pond could represent the whole wide ocean that's the world. It's generally possible to not click with anyone in a group of people of that size. When it comes to small town high schools, some of them only have 700 total students, and the graduating class may even be less than 200. And let's just use the number 200 while we're doing basic math. Let's say every 10 or so students forms like a clique, like a hobby. That means for 200 students, there's only 20 hobbies in that entire school, so 20 similar interests. And if you think about the whole world, there are way more than 20 hobbies. This means that if you're a car guy or an otaku or a skateboarder or an obscure sports fan or whatever, it's generally possible to be in a school of only, 700 kids and not meet a single person with the same interest as you. Even if you're in a larger high school of 4,000 people, so each class is like 1,000 kids, it's still genuinely possible to not click with a single person, because there are more than 4,000 hobbies and interests in the world too. So when you consider that, the first 18 years of your life are a very small sample size of the potential rest of the people you'll actually meet throughout the rest of your life. And when you think of it that way, it's almost hard not to be excited about the future. And that was one of the things I would constantly tell myself throughout late high school to early university was, I'm going to meet people I like someday. I'm going to meet people I love someday. And I hope you can forgive me for not being the most active YouTuber or for having the highest quality edits or biggest budget, because I hope me making this video finally explains why. I've just been a team of one person. I don't have a ton of money at all. I'm lucky that I even have the Corvette, to be honest, or had it rather. While I'm being so honest this video, I may as well share the real reason I was so insecure and coping about never owning a supercar. It was because I quite literally couldn't. Cancer's expensive, but I don't regret a single penny on fighting it. Besides, I was still lucky enough to have some money that I made off YouTube that I could spend on things that I did love. And I shouldn't ever in any universe not be grateful for how blessed of an opportunity that was. Because of everyone watching though, I was able to still live a very enjoyable life in spite of the cancer I was suffering from. I loved going across the country. I loved going wherever the roads took me, all the faces I'd see, all the places I'd visit. I resolved myself to live every day like it was my last, but keep learning like I'll live forever. Everything about automobiles fascinates me, and even now I'm still learning new things about them. I still always say, you can always apply for another job, but you can never buy back time from the Grim Reaper. For the most part, that should be true, but I don't know what luck stat I just rolled, but maybe somehow me breaking my shoulder was some kind of divine punishment for the trade-off I just received, because somehow I got the Grim Reaper to give me more time. Late this year in August, they did their final treatment on me. I didn't know it was going to be the final one, and honestly, I didn't at the start of it either. I didn't get the results until after me breaking my shoulder, that's the funny part. So I was kind of just laying in bed, feeling sorry for myself. And it was the most bittersweet feeling in the world when I got that email and opened it up where they were like, yeah, the only thing remaining is short segment Barrett's and an irregular Z-line, which is a far cry from the cancer that was once there. So basically I reverted to pre-cancer. And Barrett's esophagus, at least based on what I know, is basically permanent. It will stick with you for the rest of your life. However, people with Barrett's esophagus still tend to live to their mid-60s, and that's a whole lot of time I just got back. I get to grow to be a big unk and beyond. I'll be able to hit another midlife crisis. I'm gonna be one of the only people in this world who has 2 midlife crises. Because when I had the Corvette, I was basically halfway through my life, right? Again, I wasn't telling you guys that I had cancer and that I was going to die, but it's, again, I do like these dark hints, and that's how like depressed and edgy people are. Because even though I make fun of depressed, edgy, sad boys, I was actually a depressed, edgy, sad boy, and maybe that's why I hate sad boys, because we all hate the things that represent ourselves the most. I'm really inflecting a lot in this video, but like I was actually midway through my life at that point if I was going to succumb to my illness, right? But now that I'm cured, my new midway point is like 35 to 40, right? So I get to have another midlife crisis. And if I sound happy, it's because obviously I am, right? I hope to grow old. I look forward to it, in fact. Time doesn't scare me the way it used to just a few months ago. I can't wait to become gray and 70. I used to be so jealous and envious of normal, healthy people because they could sink several years in college and even grad school and still have the time to raise families afterwards and live long enough to see their kids even get kids, right? They see their children's children. I was so jealous, man. And even more jealous when those normal people would come up to me and say how much their life sucked and how they had it hard and how they don't want to have a family or having kids is overrated and blah, 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 blah. And like, I know I can't force people to live their life another certain way, and I know those people aren't trying to be mean when they say those things to me. And again, it's partially my fault because I never told them my own struggles, right? But I was envious whenever I heard them complain about those things, where it was hard for me to hear those things, where I'm like, you consider those bad things? I wish I could grow old. I wish I could have kids, and now I can. And I don't have to be scared of being selfish and alone, because just a few months ago, I used to have this personal philosophy where I never wanted to grow attached to anyone. I didn't even dare, because how could I become a father if I'm just gonna die before my kid does, right? How could I be a good man if I'm gonna leave this world before my lover does? That's just not responsible. How could I carry the weight of others if I can't even carry the weight of myself? And those are things that used to play on repeat in my head over and over anytime I had an inkling, a small thought of happiness. Like, you don't deserve happiness, man. And it was sad, right? Which is why I guess, doom spend it instead. I was like, let me just buy a stupid supercharged Corvette and drive across the country and travel the world, because that was a sense of happiness that I could still feel, even if it was me fleeting from my emotions. But as I said earlier, I still cherish those memories because I was only able to make those memories because of my journey here on YouTube. Today, I can proudly share for everyone watching that I have the strength to carry my own weight. I finally got my best wish I've always wanted, which was to be 1-to-1. I get to grow old. I get to be a big unk and beyond. I get to have another midlife crisis. I get to finally live life. And all the doors that were closed for me for so long, I get to finally open. Truly, I'm grateful. We all have our own story, and I thank you for listening to mine. No matter what troubles you've been going through or still lie ahead of you in your life, I promise you'll have the courage to face them with nerves of steel and a roaring heart. At the very least, I hope I inspired some people, or at least just helped others get through their trauma by knowing that it's okay to share your trauma, I guess, and have someone that emotionally understands you. It'll take a while to find them. And like I said, 8 billion, just remind yourself, do that basic math. Just think about 8 billion people in the world, right? One of them's gotta love you. But thanks you so much again for watching this video, and to all those who've subscribed and supported me thus far. If it's not too much to ask, keep watching as my voice continues to heal in the coming year. I do hope to talk about more than just cars. I want to end this video by giving an answer to a question I used to always ask growing up, which is that why do bad things happen to good people? And the answer is, bad things don't happen to good people. Good people become good people because bad things happen to them. And with that, I'd like to thank you all again so much for watching. See you all next time. Blade Angel out.